I am so honored to have Katie Hornor with us on Grit and Glory Songs and Stories. Katie is a business coach for faith-based entrepreneurs who's also known as the Flamingo Lady. We're thrilled. Cindy and I are thrilled to be part of her Flamboyance coaching group and for our business personally. Katie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mark. I'm excited to be with you and your audience today.
So for those of you who can see here, Katie has a very recognizable branding that with your signature flower that you wear all the time, just like I do my hat. I think your flower is beautiful. It's every time I've seen you, it's been a different one. I know you've got a limit of those, but can you tell us how that came about?
Yeah, so it's a very personal story. Some people think I do it just for branding. My husband and I and our kids live in southern Mexico, and some people think, well, maybe it's a Mexico thing, or maybe it's just this way she's chosen to stand out. But I tell you what, when we first moved to Mexico 16 and a half years ago to do ministry work, the first ministry we were involved in was extremely conservative, and they were of the very strong opinion that anything that drew attention to you drew attention away from the gospel and for the mission that we were there to achieve. And so anything bright colored, anything fun, any kind of, fingernail polish even was out of the question, because it drew attention to the person rather than the message that we were there to promote. And of course, who am I to take away from the gospel? Like, I complied. That was the only thing there was to do, right? Of course, I'm not going to take away from the message that we're there to do. And so I stuffed the fun parts of me down deep into my long floor-length skirts, and I complied. But I didn't realize what that did to my personality until many, many years later, in a different ministry, in a different season in our lives. God allowed me to be late for class one day. So I was supposed to teach an online class, and it was hot and humid, and I was taking care of kids right up to the minute. You know how it is. And at the last minute, I'm like, oh, I didn't really do my hair today. So I grabbed my daughter's flower headband and just stuck it in to get it out of my face so I could look halfway presentable and go online and teach. And everyone was like, oh, I love your flower. And I didn't really think much of it. But the next class, they said, where's the flower, Katie? That was so cool. Like, you should really wear that more often. And so I started to wear it more often. And Mark, as I started to enjoy the way I felt when I felt like I looked pretty, God spoke to my heart again that, like, this was the way he made me. And he loves the way I feel when I look pretty too. And that was the beginning of learning again who I was in Christ, and bringing out the fun of Katie that loves confetti and parties and bright colors and happy things that had been stuffed down inside of me for so long. And interestingly enough, like, those were some of the things my husband first fell in love with. Right. And so it was just a rekindling of who I am. And so I still wear the flower, and I wear it every day, even when I'm not on screen or at an event, because it's my visual reminder that I get to show up and be who God made me to be today.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I wear my hat everywhere except for when I'm on the platform leading worship, and it's just kind of who I am. And I love that about you, Katie. I just love that about you. Having met you, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the only caveat to that is I do not wear it in airports. All right. And there's a whole other long story about that. But let's just say, once you've been accused of being a decoy one time, you don't want to repeat that experience.
Okay. Good enough. Good enough. Well, that's awesome. Well, one of the questions I've got for you, Katie, is I'd love to know how you became known as the Flamingo Lady. And then just a little tale on that is why you wanted a song written for your business.
Oh, these are good stories. So several years ago, my family and I were living in Mexico still, because we ended up having to start a business to support the mission work that we still felt like God was calling us to do in Mexico. And so we're living there with our family, and we decided it would be really cool to take our kids and go find flamingos in the wild. They migrate to our area of southern Mexico, and we'd only ever seen them on TV and in the zoo. And so we took our kids on this trip out to the coast, and we chartered a fishing boat, this little tin fishing boat, and the little man to man the motor. And he took us down the coast and up the river to where the flamingos were staying, where they'd landed there. And I just remember as we rounded that bend in the river and they came into view, like it was nothing like I had ever experienced or even expected. I don't know what I expected, but it definitely wasn't that, because everywhere you could see, there's thousands and thousands of pink birds.
Wow.
And it just looked from a distance as if somebody had just dumped like heaven's barrel of cotton candy all across the horizon. I mean, blue sky, blue water, and then the jungle green on both sides, and these fluffy clouds of pink just everywhere. And it was just super, super impressive visually. But then the closer we got to these, the guides saying, don't put your hands in the water, there's crocodiles here, and as we get up closer to where these flamingos are standing in the shallow water, I thought they would like get upset with us, I don't know, squawk at us or fly away or something. And Mark, they just stood there. Like they just continued to do what they were there to do. And we got within several feet of them. He turned off the motor and lifted it up so it wouldn't hit rocks. It was really shallow. And we just kept floating like through this cloud of pink, and they would just calmly move aside, just incredible. I get goosebumps even telling the story today. And so long story short, I just couldn't get it out of my head. And I am a teacher by trade. I have a master's in educational curriculum development and education. And so I started researching, right? That's what you do when you can't get something out of your head. And the more I found out about these crazy pink flamingos, the more lessons and metaphors kept coming to me about how entrepreneurs and flamingos are alike. And so let me just give you a couple really quick. One of them is that flamingo who is calm and confident to just stand there in a river full of crocodiles and to do what he was created to do. We need to be more like that. It's time we as entrepreneurs stop worrying about who else is in our river and just have the boldness to stand up and do what we were created to do, right?
Yeah.
They weren't fluttered by danger. And we need to stop worrying about the competition and the perceived dangers and just have the confidence that if God created me to do this, then I am in the safest place I could possibly be right now, right?
Yeah.
Flamingos thrive in community. A flamingo that gets separated from the rest of the flock, or the flamboyance is the actual term, they cannot survive very long on their own. They need that community to be able to thrive. And as entrepreneurs, so do we. I've been where I tried to make it by myself, Mark, and it's super, super hard to be isolated and continue to make progress and thrive as an entrepreneur, just like a flamingo. And so I started incorporating those lessons into my trainings and my coaching. It became a best-selling book, Faith Like Flamingos, that then led to more of a marketing technical kind of book that is the Flamingo Advantage. We rebranded our entire brand around that because it was such an amazing symbolic symbol of being able to step into the purpose God designed for you with a confidence like those flamingos have. And I love it. I mean, pink is not my favorite color, but we're sure embracing it.
Well, I embraced it today. For those who can see it, I've got the pink going on here, and as pink a lights as I could have in my studio here. I have embraced it. I love your story so much. Well, you've kind of alluded to the getting into the next question here, so we'll just go ahead and jump into that, because I've heard you say in the past a big milestone in your business. I want you to know that I was listening. Cindy and I were listening. A big milestone was when you realized that community was the missing piece that you needed. Mm-hmm. So how do you think that applies to everyone's life?
Well, for us, community, what we realized, because we had been missionaries in Mexico for 12 years officially, a little bit longer than that, kind of unofficially. And we were a country away from my family. We were the other side of the country from his family. And we had no one in the area that we could trust, that we could confide in, nobody to meet up with for coffee face to face. Like it was just us. Oh, and, God redeems everything. And what he did with that time of isolation was that he made my husband and I's relationship so much stronger. We had to be our own team and our home team, and we had to get to know one another and be one another's support system. But we also realized how important it was to be surrounded by people who understand your values and understand your goals and understand what you're even talking about when you're talking about business. And so as our business continued to grow, and we added in coaching programs and things like that, we had a lot of DIY classes for a while because we had to learn business ourselves. And so if I can learn it, I can teach it. I'm a teacher, right? And we created all these courses and things that were DIY. And at some point, we realized that they would do so much better and our people would do better if there was an element of community involved. And so back early in the pandemic around 2020, when we kind of broke our business apart and tried to rebuild it better, that was one of the things that we did, is that we focused on making sure that each of our offerings had a community piece in it. And we have seen so much better progress for our people because of doing that. And it's just that simple fact, like we need like-minded folks to support and encourage and bounce things off and pull us back to center when we're off track, and share experiences and all those kinds of things. It's been super, super important for us, not just for our clients, but also for us personally, to have those groups and those coaches and those masterminds that we're also a part of.
You're part of how many masterminds?
At the moment, I am involved in 3 paid masterminds and 3 other peer masterminds.
Wow. So you believe in
I take it seriously.
Yeah, you sure do. Did you find that to be a hard thing to get people to buy into, that we're going to be part of your community? I mean, so many people, I do notice this today. Work is very stressful. And so people typically want to just get done with work, slam the computer shut, go home, close the door, and just be alone, which is one of the worst things we can do. I don't care what you are or aren't going through. When you isolate yourself, you tend to go through more difficult things. Did you find that a difficult thing to, I don't want to use the word convince, because I don't think any of us want to convince other people that they need to do this, but we want to make the offering so palatable that they think,
Right.
why haven't I done this before?
Yeah, the languaging part of it. I think people realize the value of it. And I kind of see what we offer in terms of our group coaching program more as a holistic program. Like we usually think of that word in terms of people that do health and fitness or something like that, where you're working with the whole body rather than just an isolated symptom. And in our business, and helping people to find the confidence to live out their purpose in the marketplace and to have the tools and resources to up level what they're doing to reach their people, I see it more as a holistic experience for our clients as well, because I don't just care about your revenue. I also care about your life. Like I care about your family. I care about your spiritual health, right? And everything we do in our business also comes back to a principle from God's word. And so we're frequent, like we don't just use that in marketing. We're not just Christian business in name, but we actually go back to that in everything that we teach. And so I think for us, it was, I think there's people who are searching for that kind of thing. Like it's easy to say I'm a Christian business coach or I'm a kingdom something, but when it's actually like showing up to a coaching call and I say, okay, did you talk to God about that? Because until you do, nothing I say matters, right?
Right.
Or when you
Wow.
say like, so how long have you been discussing this with the owner, God, right? Or is this just the first time and you want some feedback, right? Is it following the principle that you've laid out? Is it following the core values that you and God and your business partner, if you have one, have set up, right? Always bringing things back to those things. And I think that's the value of this kind of community, is that I'm not just teaching a method, I'm not just teaching a framework, but we're actually in community together where both life and business matters, because they both affect the other. It should be blended. You're not who you are at work and a different person at home. You are that person all the way through, and that whole person matters.
And that's a hard thing to be that person all the time, because I know sometimes if your job depends on you being a particular type of person, sometimes we put on and then we go home and we're a different kind of person. And when we hang out with the right people, and I've said this many, many times, when you hang out with the right people, the people that have your best in mind, they bring out the best in you that allows you to live your life 24/7, who you really are. And I love the fact that you're a Christian business coach, you're a business coach for Christian entrepreneurs, and you don't separate business and Jesus. I really, really appreciate that about you and your stance on that. I've heard you talk about that. How can you separate your Christianity from your business? How can you do that?
You can't do it any better than a flamingo can take his pink away.
There you go. Tell everybody real quick why the flamingos are pink.
Oh, well, so the flamingos get their color from what they eat. And so the better their nutrition, the brighter their color. And that's what it establishes a leader in the flock, is that he's got the best color. He knows where to get the best food. And so as entrepreneurs, what you feed yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, business, tactically, like all of that you bring in is what makes you better and bolder and brighter of an influence on the outside.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, as we're kind of shotgunning a little bit here, I've also heard you talk about the value of music during your lowest points in your life. Can you tell us about that and the role that music plays in your life today?
Absolutely. Music has been a part of my life since early. I didn't have music training formally until I was in high school. But we went to a little country church in the mountains of Western North Carolina, and there was music. And it was one of those things where the song leader also played lead guitar. And there was a pianist that played by ear, and anyone that wanted to could come up and sing. And any service there was, he would say, all singers come around, and whoever wanted to sing came around. And we joined together and sang with the voices God had given us. And in high school, I started learning piano, and then I was able to take flute my senior year of high school. I had a music minor in college, a music and a Spanish minor, double minor, because I knew that the flute was an instrument I'd be able to take to the mission field more easily than some others, and it came easily to me because I only had to read one line of music. But those songs and things that I learned growing up, the hymns as well as the songs and the choruses from that little mountain church, really spoke a lot of doctrine into me that I didn't realize the value of until we were in those crisis years. And, I don't know your story. I don't know your listeners' stories, but I know when I say crisis years, many of you know exactly what I'm talking about in your life.
Absolutely.
We went through a period of ministry change where there was betrayal, and there was blackmail, and there was abandonment, and there was just all kinds of horrible, horrible things that God walked us through. And it was in those dark moments that a lot of those pieces of song came back to me. The things like, great is thy faithfulness. The things like, oh, here's the story. We moved into this. We finally got the money together to buy this old house through some inheritance things. We bought a historic home. It's over 250 years old. We spent the whole year remodeling the master bedroom so that we could get in there. We moved in like the week that rainy season started, and we didn't realize there was all kinds of leaks in the roof in that master bedroom. So for a whole rainy season, we are trying to move our laptop around from place to place in the bedroom so it doesn't get wet, moving around towels and buckets on the floor, trying to run a business and homeschool our kids and still keep working on a house. And with literally, it was raining in our bedroom. And that was one of my lowest points. And God used the song, "There shall be showers of blessings."
I love it.
Right? Showers of blessings, mercy drops is what you're hearing in those buckets. And I couldn't always see it. And there were some days when I just had to claim 1 Thessalonians 5:24. Lord, I don't think I have it in me to trust right now. But you said that I need to trust you. And you've also said in 1 Thessalonians 5:24 that you are faithful to do through me what you've called me to do. And so if you're calling me to trust you today, I'm just letting you know you're going to have to trust for me. And he did. And he got us through it. But those scripture verses and those doctrines of who our God is and his promises to us, and just praising him for his character, even on the days when I couldn't see it, is a lot of what got us through a lot of those dark times. And so that's what music means to me. And then we met you, and it just got even more wonderful.
Thank you.